Hello friends, welcome back to Wawa AS. Welcome back to the discussion on Vision Economy PT365, and this is part 16 of the lecture series where we are going to cover infrastructure sector. So hope you have watched the rest of the parts of Vision Economy PT365 where we have covered in detail regarding all the topics. And if you haven't watched, I'll leave the link of all the lectures in the description. Please do go and watch. Okay? And one more thing guys, if you like our initiative, do spread the word about Wawa AS and do comment in the comment box if you have any suggestions for us. Right, now let's begin. The first topic what we have today is railways. In that, the first thing is the dedicated freight corridors. So dedicated freight corridors are those corridors which are specifically for the movement of freight, movement of cargo, right? So normally what will happen is, if you take a railway track, both the passenger and the cargo trains will go in the same track. Because of this, what is happening is the cargo is getting delayed because the preference generally will be given to the passenger trains. So the cargo gets delayed. So because of this, what is happening is the businesses are getting impacted. The businesses are getting impacted, and also when you talk about efficiency of the business, when you talk about efficiency of the exports, all this is getting impacted. Because normally, if you see the freight, if you see the cargo movement by trains, it is 12 times more efficient than the movement of cargoes by train. So easily, if we tap this potential, then cargo will become a game changer for Indian manufacturing industry. This is the thing, right? So this dedicated freight corridor are those corridors which are specifically for the freight movement, specifically for the cargo movement. So the government has planned two important corridors, or you can say that two corridors are in construction. They are the western and the eastern dedicated freight corridors. Western and the eastern dedicated freight corridors, and we will see there are even other corridors which are proposed whose construction has not started, but it will start in future. But currently two corridors construction is started and they are going on. They are the western dedicated freight corridor and the eastern dedicated freight corridor, and we will see the details. So why this dedicated freight corridor was in use is, recently Prime Minister inaugurated the new Bhawanpur, new Khurja section and the operational control center of the dedicated freight corridor. Okay? It is a 351 kilometer section between Khurja and Bhawanpur in UP, and the operational center is located in Prayag, UP, Uttar Pradesh. Okay? So you have to remember this. The operational control center of the eastern dedicated freight corridor is in Prayagraj, Uttar Pradesh. Right? So if you see the dedicated freight corridors, they are high speed, high capacity railway corridors which are purely, or you can say which are only for the movement of freight. That means movement of cargo through train. Okay? So we have two freight corridors, eastern dedicated freight corridor and the western dedicated freight corridor. So this eastern dedicated freight corridor, if you see, this is from Punjab to West Bengal, the Sahenwal in Punjab to Dankuni in West Bengal, and it runs across 6 states. So you have to remember this. Okay? Punjab to West Bengal. So the thing is that what will happen is, because of this freight corridor, the goods, or you can say the food grains from Punjab to West Bengal can move much faster. The steel production which is happening somewhere in UP, Jharkhand can move much faster to West Bengal, that is to the port directly. So all these things are various advantages. And also there is a proposal for the logistics park at Kanpur in UP and Ludhiana in Punjab by PPP mode, by creating a special purpose vehicle for the same. So remember, logistics park at Kanpur in UP and Ludhiana in Punjab. So next you have the western dedicated freight corridor. Western dedicated freight corridor, this is from Delhi to Mumbai. This is from Delhi to Mumbai. So it links Dadri in the national capital region to Jawaharlal Nehru port in Mumbai, and it runs across 6 states and proposed to join the eastern dedicated freight corridor at Dadri, right? Okay. And here the logistic park will be set up in Mumbai, Gujarat and Jaipur along with NCR. Okay? So these are the things that we need to remember. And there are some other dedicated freight corridors which are proposed, but their construction has not yet started. They are East Coast corridor from Kharagpur to Vijayawada in Andhra Pradesh, Kharagpur in West Bengal to Vijayawada in Andhra Pradesh, East-West corridor which includes Bhushanwal, Nagpur, Kharagpur, Dankuni near Kolkata route, and Rajkarvakshan to Andal. So all these route there will be another east-west corridor, and you have the north-south sub-corridor which is from Vijayawada to Nagpur. Okay? And there is this company called Dedicated Freight Corridor Corporation of India Limited for the developing of the dedicated freight corridor project, and this is under the Ministry of Railways. ठीक है, right. So next one is about the private participation in railways. So as you know, there is this concept of private trains. So what a railway is thinking is that the operations of the railways will be given to the private sector, operations of the trains in fact. That means the train will be owned by a private company, it will be owned by the private company, it will be running by the private company. So all the prices and everything will be fixed by the private company only. This is the concept. So recently Railway Ministry has invited the private participation for operation of passenger trains over 109 origin to destination pairs using the 151 modern trains and existing rail infrastructure. Okay, and these modern trains actually they are designated for maximum of 160 km per hour, and this is in line with the Make in India policy, as most of the coaches are manufactured in India and the local component would be specified in the policy. So under this, what will be the responsibility of the private entity? This we need to know for the exam. So this private entity, they will be financing, procuring, operating and maintaining the trains. This will be the main thing. They will be financing, procuring, operating and maintaining the trains. And also the operation of the trains by the private entity, they shall conform to the punctuality, reliability and upkeep of trains. Okay? And also the fares, they will be decided by the private entity itself. Okay? And also basket of services, or that means what are the services that can be offered on the train, everything will be decided by the private entity only. Now what is the responsibility of Indian Railways in this? Indian Railways will take care of the driver and the guard. So the train, who is called the loco pilot, they will belong to Indian Railways only. So also the safety clearance of the trains will be taken care by the Indian Railways, and the private sector allowed to run trains for up to 35 years, and in return they will share revenue, part of their fixed haulage charges and energy charges, right? Because normally currently if you see railways, if you see sorry, here the operating ratio is about 0.95. that means for every 1 rupee what railway is earning, they are spending 0.95 rupee. That means 0.05 paisa they are earning, okay, in every 1 rupee what they are getting as revenue. So that is the reason the railway generally will not be in profits. Railway generally will not be in profits, and the growth is also not that expected, because railway has a great potential and this potential have to be utilized. If this has to be done, then this private participation is very important. Okay? So here some more information is given about the Dedicated Freight Corridor Corporation of India Limited, and this was set up under the Companies Act of 1956 in 2006. This is mainly for the planning and development, mobilization of the finance resources and construction, maintenance and operation of the dedicated freight corridors. That means the dedicated freight corridors, they will be completely under this company only. The operating of this freight corridor, the maintenance of this freight corridor, the finances for this freight corridor, so everything will be managed by this company itself, and this company's mission is to build corridor with appropriate technology and enable Indian Railways to regain the freight transport market share. Because currently if you see the railway share, it is only 35% in terms of the movement of freight, whereas the roadways, if you see, it has more than 60% share. Well, let's not talk about waterways because it is very less. It is approximately the rest 9%, that's it, and that too inland waterways is very less. It's only 1%, less than 1% in fact. Okay? So that's the reason the railways, as it is more efficient, if we can convert this road movement of freight to rail movement, then the efficiency will increase, and when the efficiency increases, the manufacturing capacity can increase. When the manufacturing capacity will increase, then the exports will become more competitive in the international market. When the exports will become more competitive, in fact new companies will be set up in the company, in the country, and new manufacturing companies will be coming, and then the country will grow economically. Okay, this is what will happen. Now let's move on to the next one. So next one is with regarding to other developments with respect to railways, and first one what you have is the National Rail Plan. This National Rail Plan is drafted to address the capacity constraints and improve the model share of railways and the business. That means overall restructuring of the business how railway is conducting. And the key highlights, if you see, the Vision 2024 was launched, okay, and it has actually said that some new projects, some critical projects, they will be accelerated, and also along with this 100% electrification will be done by 2024. This is the target, and multi-tracking of congested routes, upgrading of speed, etc. will be done. The future projects implementation beyond 2024 for both track and signaling, they are identified with clear-cut timelines for the implementation. Okay, that means there will be no delays in during the construction of the projects. And also it has also talked about the dedicated freight corridors and involvement of private sector in running of trains. So next thing what you have is the green railways by 2020. So to transform the railway into green railways and achieve net zero carbon emission, the Indian Railways is also taking a lot of initiatives for this. The first thing is the electrification of the routes on broad gauge by December 2023. So electrification of all routes will be done. Mainly, especially the first thing what they will be doing is electrification of the broad gauges, and also 100 megawatt solar plant. It will be commissioned on rooftops of buildings of the railways to produce power from land-based solar installation, and this power in turn will be used by the railways. And 103 megawatt wind-based power plants will also be commissioned. Actually, it is already commissioned. Okay? And also to save fuel, 505 pairs of trains are converted to head-on generation. So normally if you see the trains, if let's say this is the first coach of the train, that means here the driver will be there. On top of this you will see something like this. You will see some something hanging like this. This is nothing but the poles which will take current from the overhead wires. This is called head-on generation. Normally not all trains have this head-on generation. In some trains you will find these diesel cars. That means here these cars will be running, you can say they will be running generators based on diesel, and these generators in turn will produce power, and this will be used for the train running. Okay, this is how generally it is going on now, but this has to be reduced because we want to reduce the usage of diesel. This is the main thing, we want to reduce the usage of diesel. Okay, next one is the roll on roll off service. The roll on roll off service, if you see, you might have seen even during the oxygen supply, the recent oxygen supply by the Indian Railways. Roll on roll off supply means, for example, let's say there has to be a movement of a truck from Delhi to Mumbai. So let's say there are 100 trucks which are moving daily from Delhi to Mumbai. Okay? Delhi to Mumbai, 100 trucks. So normally these 100 trucks has to move by road. This 100 trucks has to move by road. So but these 100 trucks, if they move by road, what will happen? There will be traffic on the road, and also there will be something called pollution on the road, because the trucks will pollute a lot. Now what is the solution is the roll on roll off service. As these 100 trucks which carry different types of goods from Delhi to Mumbai, they have to travel. What they will do is they will board a train. Okay, the train will have some flat surface. You can just Google the image, you will just know. Recently even the oxygen is being supplied in the same way. The oxygen trucks, they have moved in the same way. So it will be like this flat thing will be there, and the trains will board these flat coaches. Okay, sorry, not trains, the trucks. These trucks will board these flat coaches. Then the train will move. The train will take all the 100 trucks at the same time. This is the advantage of this roll on roll off. That means it is rolling on in Delhi and it is rolling off at Mumbai. So then all the trucks will be moving much faster. Okay, and also the price, or you can say the transportation charges, will decrease a lot, right? So next one is the Kisan Rail. So Kisan Rail is nothing but the rail which is generally, or you can say which is for the movement of perishable agri products. So recently India's second Kisan Rail was launched. This is from Anantapur in Andhra Pradesh to New Delhi. This is the India's second and South India's first Kisan Rail. The first India's Kisan Rail was launched between Devlali in Maharashtra and Danapur in Bihar. Next one, the special parcel train. First time a special parcel train, Indian Railways loaded it beyond country borders, and India has transported these dry chilies from Guntur in Andhra Pradesh to Bangladesh, that is Benapole in Bangladesh. This Guntur chilies, they have this GI tag as well. So they are well known even internationally, right? So now let's move on to the next topic. So next topic is the port and shipping. So a draft Indian port bill was launched, but for the exam this draft bill is not needed. Okay, for the exam what we need is only the bills which are passed by the parliament. So draft bills are not needed for us. Okay, but you can just go through this. If you have any doubt, you can just ask in the comment box. We'll move on to the next one. So next one is the Major Port Authority Bill of 2020. So in 2020, Lok Sabha has passed this Major Port Authority Bill. In 2021 February, even Rajya Sabha also has passed this major port authority bill. This bill actually provides regulation, operation and planning of major ports and provides them greater autonomy. It even replaces the earlier Major Port Trust Act of 1963. This is mainly to ensure decentralization in decision making, because normally the decision making, even the board, even if the board is there, they are actually not able to take decisions. They have to consult the central government for each and every decision, and this is delaying the process. So that is the reason now more and more powers are given to these boards, and the more decentralization of power is being done, and now this will infuse more professionalism in the decision making and in the working and functioning of the boards. Okay? Now the ports will become much stronger, they can take more independent decisions, and also they can grow economically much faster. So the key features of the bill, if you see, a board of major port authority will be created for each port, and this will have the powers of administration, control, management of ports, etc. And even the role of tariff authority for major ports is redefined. So this BPA, this board of major port authority only has now the power to fix tariffs as well. Okay? And also the governance and everything is being revamped. The reorient governance model to landlord port model to bring transparency in the operations of the major ports. That means now what will happen is that the land will be there with the government, and this land will be leased to the private entities for the running of ports. This will be done from now. Okay? So this is called as landlord port model. In this landlord port model, ownership of the port remains with the port authority. As I told already, the infrastructure will be leased to private firms. So the port will be created by the government. This land will be land and everything. All the assets will be named, or you can say all the assets are the government's only, but only the operations will be carried on by the private entity. So this is called as landlord model, landlord port model. Okay? So here there are some differences between the new, or you can say what this new bill is going to do. That is what is given. So a new board is created, and various other how the rates will be determined. Okay? And also now these boards can actually take decisions more independently with regarding to finances as well. They may fix the tariffs on their own. Okay? And also the board can use funds for CSR activities directly. Okay? And also another thing is that these boards, they take up concessional contract. That means all the contract tariffs also will be fixed by the board only. And another important thing what this bill provides is the adjudicatory board. This adjudicatory board deals with issues that occurs in the ports. Okay? So another important thing which I want to tell is the financial powers. Now these boards actually can take decisions with regard to finances on their own. The board may raise loan from any scheduled bank or financial institution on their own without any permission from the government of India, with prior sanctions. Prior sanction will be there by the government, but when to take and from whom to take, everything will be done by the board itself. Okay? And for the loans above 50% of capital reserve, only then the permission has to be taken from the government. Otherwise the board can act independently. Earlier the board used to take decisions after consulting the government, and especially for the finance, the board has to ask the government. Right? Now let's move on to the next one. So the next one is the Sarod Ports. The first one, the Society for Affordable Redressal of Disputes of Ports. This is a dispute settlement body, okay, which is in the maritime sector, and this includes port and shipping sector in major, or you can say major and non-major ports, private ports, jetties, terminals. And this was established under Society Act of 1860, and the main objective is nothing but affordable and timely resolution of disputes in fair manner, enrichment of dispute resolution mechanism. This is the main thing that this Sarod Ports want to do. It covers disputes between granting authority and licensee, the concessionaire or contractor, and also disputes between licensee and their contractors. So mainly all the disputes which are occurring in the ports will be dealt by this. Okay? And the next one you have is the vessel traffic services and vessel traffic monitoring systems. This vessel traffic service and vessel monitoring system, these are nothing but softwares. Right? So these are indigenously made softwares which will determine vessel position, the position of traffic, meteorological hazard warnings, and extensive management of traffic within the port or waterway. And according to the International Maritime Organization Convention, this Organization Convention on the Safety of Life at Sea, this VTMS, the vessel traffic monitoring system, is compulsory. ठीक है. Till now we are depending on foreign companies for this VTMS and VTS, but now we have developed this indigenous software. Next one is the transshipment port. So transshipment port is nothing but a port where you can say it's an intermediary port where vessels which carry small, or you can say small vessels carrying goods will come here, and they will load this cargo onto big vessels, because not all the ports can take care of, or you can say not all ports in India can they can handle these big ships, big cargo ships. Okay, only few of them can handle, and easily we have constructed these transshipment ports where they will act as an intermediary ports, where the small ships they will come and they will load this cargo onto the big ships. Okay, so currently we have two transshipment ports, the Vallarpadam terminal in Cochin and Vizinjam port in Trivandrum. These two are the transshipment ports, and now the government wants to construct a third transshipment port. Okay, and what this will do is this will reduce the dependence of India on foreign companies for the transshipment, or you can say foreign ports for this transshipment. Next one, you have the National Logistics Portal, NLP Marine. So Minister of Shipping is planning to develop this NLP Marine. This will help exporters, importers and service providers for the exchange of documents and transact their business in a quick manner. This is an online platform. Okay, and this will also enhance easy clearance of customs online transactions with the custodians. This is about the National Logistics Program, but as this is not yet launched completely, this is not much important for the exam as well, right? Now let's move on to the next one. Next one, we will see the ports which are in use. So this Vadhavan port was in use. The Vadhavan port will be the 13th major port which will be constructed in India. Okay, till now we have 12 major ports, and this will be the 13th major port. So Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is going to handle this, they have given this green signal for the Vadhavan port in Maharashtra. Okay, it's in Maharashtra, and this will be set up under the Companies Act. This will be set up under the Companies Act, and this will be set up under this landlord port model. I told you already what is a landlord port model. So all the basic infra and everything will be developed by this company, but this port operation will be leased to the private players. That is the important thing of this Vadhavan port. And this will be the first port which will be, or you can say this will be the first time where India is going to experiment this landlord port model. Next one is the Chidambaram port, the Chidambarnar port. Sorry. So this is a direct port entry facility that is being developed at the Chidambarnar port, and it will enable export clearance of factory, and this is to ensure, or you can say this is for the easy clearances. That is the main thing. And this Chidambarnar Port Trust in Tamil Nadu is also known as the Tuticorin Port Trust. So, okay, this is one of the 12 major port of India. Next one, you have the Kolkata port. So recently, the first ever container ship moved from Kolkata port to Agartala via Chattogram port and the Mongla port. So this Chattogram, so there is difference between the Chittagong port and the Chattogram port. So don't get confused with that. Right. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to get easy access to the Northeast India. So this easy access to the Northeast India will enhance the trade to Northeast India and better connectivity with the mainland India. Next one, you have the Paradip port. The Paradip port is in Odisha, and recently Cabinet approved a project for the deepening and optimization of the inner harbour of the Paradip port, because it's a deep sea port, and this port will be very advantageous for the movement of freight for big ships, especially for the big ships, because if you see Odisha coast, this will be handling majorly, or you can say the major cargo for these ports will be the movement of coal, iron ore, etc. Because this Odisha is very near to states like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, etc. Okay? So that is the importance of this Paradip port, and even Odisha is also rich in minerals. So next one is about the inland waterways. So recently Ministry of Shipping waived this water usage charges for inland waterways for 3 years. This is to promote the inland waterways. That is the main idea of central government, because if you see, waterways is one of the cheapest modes of transport, but still we are not able to develop, or we are not able to utilize the potential what we have. If you see India, it has 14,500 kilometers of navigable waterways, but what is the, or you can say, but if you see the share in transport, it is mere 0.15. 0.5 is given, but it's even less than that, the inland waterways, if you see. So that is the reason India wants to grow, or you can say India wants to develop these waterways, inland waterways especially, If you see Netherlands, it has share of 42%, China has a share of 8.7%, USA has 8.3%, and Europe has 7%, but India has mere less than 0.5% in fact. All these things are taken care by the Inland Waterway Authority of India. Generally what they will do is they will apply this water usage charges for using of the water for movement of inland transport. But now this is being waived for next 3 years. This Inland Waterway Authority is a statutory body. Okay? So next one is the key concepts and entities in use. First one is transferable development rights. So transferable development right, this is to ensure that the faster, or you can say the faster land clearances, or in other words, this is to ensure quick acquisition of land, because normally land acquisition is one of the major problem of India. Take any state, land acquisition is a major problem. So that is the reason even in ease of doing business we will be seeing this issue of land acquisition. So that's why central government has come up with a plan where now the central government is going to make people stakeholders in this, stakeholders in the development. Now what will happen is that these stakeholders, or you can say these people, they will be given a land and they can develop the way they want after that area is developed. This is so for that only that land development rights certificate will be given to the people. Okay? And even if you see, if the people have given a land for construction of a building, these people who have given the land, they can construct an extra floor and they can use it the way they want. That is the thing with this concept. Okay? So this is an advantageous and a win-win situation both for the government as well as for the people. Next one is the cities, which is the City Investment to Innovate, Integrate and Sustain program. So Assist Indian Cities is implementing urban infrastructure projects that are integrated, innovation driven and sustainable. Basically it combines the financial assistance and the technical assistance to the selected cities, and this is mainly to ensure the development of urban areas. And this is supported by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs along with French Development Agency and EU. Okay, so this is mainly to ensure that the sustainable development of urban infrastructure takes place, because for this we need integrated and innovation driven sustainable or you can say integrated and innovation driven development which will lead to sustainable development. So cities is a program between Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and the French Development Agency and EU. This is the main thing that we need to remember. Next one is the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. So recently this Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, this was in news because this is actually a regulatory authority for civil aviation security and is headquartered in Delhi. And recently a committee was set up which is headed by Pandey. Okay, this committee was set up to lay down more standards and measures for the security of civil flights of India, both international and domestic. So that's why this was in news. Next one is the investment clearance cell for the aviation sector. This investment clearance cell for the aviation sector, if you see, this is nothing but to expedite the investment proposals which the government gets both from the foreign as well as domestic industry. Okay? This is to ensure that more investments come into the aviation sector and clearances will be done faster. That is the main aim. And this is a 10-member committee headed by Amber Dubey, who is the Joint Secretary of Ministry of Civil Aviation. And this was announced in the 2020-2021 budget. Okay? So this is about this investment clearance cell for faster clearance of investment in the aviation sector. So that's it friends for this lecture. I'll see you again in the next lecture. Till then keep studying and stay tuned. Jai Hind.